favorite film role was one in a film called Proud Valley, later renamed The Tunnel, made in Wales. A story of coal mining life in Wales, and I was a Negro coal miner who came from America and found myself in the Welsh Valley and a part of the life of Wales. In it, I sang many songs of Wales, was in the choir, in one of the choirs, worked in the mines, sang with the choruses, Welsh choruses, and it reflected the life in the valley. They had a hunger march in the picture, and it was made just after How Green Was My Valley, which you might remember that. Ours was made on a very small budget by Michael Balcon at Ealing. And this is by far my favorite film. It's reshown every once in a while on British television. Wales has become a sort of, it's almost, you can't even say a second home. It's just like home. And I can go anywhere in Wales, especially in the valley, knock on any door, and I would be welcomed, as Paul belongs to them. So this is by far my favorite film. Next would come Showboat. I liked the music of Kern. I thought Jerome Kern and Hammerstein were some of the finest talents in the American musical comedy field. I would include no other of my films. They could easily be forgotten any 2 seconds. One guy was very disappointed in Sydney because I didn't seem to be Bazambo. Good Lord. I mean, just why would I be Bazambo? Or any other of my characters in the films. After all, I'm an actor.
Bazambo, that was Saint as the River, wasn't it?
Yes, and we was talking about that. He said we had an interview. I don't know what he thought. As I tell him, this was a motion picture which, thank God, history has passed by, because the Bazambos have disappeared while the Ghanas and the Nigerias are completely independent, and they don't need any Saunders or any Bazambos, thank God. What would interest you, that 95% of all the folk music in the world can be played on the 5 black keys of the piano. I don't know whatever occurred to you now. There are 5 black keys on the piano, okay? Agreed, you're looking at them. Okay. Here is the Skyboat song. The whole song will be on the black keys of the piano. This is another Scottish song. Da da dee dee dee, da dee da dee da dee da dee da da dee da da dee da da da. Okay, on the black key. Here's another one. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for the carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for the carry me home. That's one reason why the folk music of different peoples is very much like the folk music of another, okay? For using the same 5 notes over centuries of time, you would be obviously approaching music that is very similar one to the other. And this is true of Hebridean music, for example. I have a thing here of the pibroch of the Scotch, pibroch, very much like certain blues melodies and certain Negro melodies. Can match the Hebridean songs, Chinese songs. So I'm writing a book which suggests that there is in existence a universal language. Just imagine that. A universal language that any people can understand in any part of the world. Happens to be a musical one. And so I've had the experience of being able to sing the Chinese Hebridean songs and have them say, well, that's a Chinese song. And I've been able to stand in Scotland and have them insist the Chinese song is a Hebridean one or an African one. I think that's wonderful. Now, what is most important, however, in this investigation is that one is likely to think of a folk song as a rather primitive expression of classic music. And in my investigations, it's been interesting to discover that the chorales used by Bach also belong in this category, and that often these chorales had two other notes. Most of the chorales of Bach put in the fourth and seventh, but it's been proven that probably their basic form is the five-note form, so that even the great Johann Sebastian Bach, in many of his chorales, belongs in the folk stream, music stream of the world. There is no question that a modern composer, Bela Bartok, has built his whole harmony and whole music on the pentatonic five-note music of Hungary and other peoples. So somewhere the pentatonic folk framework perhaps could be an answer as to which direction music will turn. But most arrangers of folk songs have imposed upon our folk music what I call the three sort of simple chords that are the basis of German harmony and of West European harmony. And it's most illustrated as if you now have a wonderful blues. I woke up this morning, da-da-dum-dum-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da-dum, bum-bum-bum-bum. And suddenly somebody says, well, how do you, or Joshua at the Battle of Jericho, 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 or a Chinese song, Tai-yang tu-lai jen-hung-ga-ga-chi-ma-wo. Somebody says, well, how should you arrange that? And somebody says, well, I got exactly the right tune now. Of course, that music is very jagged and very irregular, but the harmony to put under it, and this is the harmony they do put under it, goes with this tune. Oh, du lieber Augustin, 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 oh, du lieber Augustin, bum, 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 bum. And that's what they've done to our poor Maori songs, our African songs. Under all this music goes the chords that go with O du lieber Augustin. And I don't blame people for saying, let us sing them without any harmony whatsoever. So I've written a book to suggest that we have found another harmony, and the harmony is Bartok's and Mussorgsky's and Janacek and Dr. Vaughan Williams and Mr. Johann Sebastian Bach. And please leave Du lieber Augustin to Mr. Brahms or whoever it may be. That's all. The folk language means that it is, by its very definition, the collective growth of centuries of people, is that not so? Of many generations. This is not Burns creating a language out of his own brain. It is using the language of his people over many generations and bringing to it his individual genius, in a sense. But it is that individual genius merged into generations of the creation of his people. It is in this sense that I would always want to remain a folk singer and sing that music which comes from composers who have had respect for the creations of the generations of their peoples, and not like maybe some of the modern composers who may be very gifted, but who would feel that out of their individual brain, no matter how gifted, that out of that one brain could come melodies and musical ideas quite superior to these folk creations of generations. I simply don't believe it, so I don't sing those composers. They seem to me to be arrogant, romanticized, and completely, that's the reason I only sing folk songs, no matter how great the individual composer. And when you turn to Johann Sebastian Bach, he was a collective soul, said Schweitzer, Albert Schweitzer, a collective soul. What a beautiful idea. Often I feel I can sit for hours just thinking and working. My mother was very Indian in her feeling. On the other hand, my father was very African and very forgiving and very patient. And I think it's interesting, often when I just had some interviews lately coming to straight, I'm a complete mixture. It depends. Every once in a while I can be very patient and very kind. I guess that's the African in me. And then sometimes I can get very angry And in my football games at different times playing rugger, I must say, I guess I've gone back to my Indian forebears because an ambulance used to drive up every few seconds. But I'm trying very much to get back to my African forebears these days. I began singing in my father's church when I was 3.
Yes.
And my singing really began in high school. Let's say when I was from the time I was a child in the church to my secondary, before I went to university. Because I did most of my singing in a glee club from about 1915 to 1919 when I was 17 to 21. And there was a Miss Vossler who trained me at that time, and I was the sort of the bass in the high school glee club. And this was, I would say, the basic singing that I had. And I went to college and did not sing in the glee club. I never thought of singing again until 1925 when I was doing, or 1923 or so, when I was in a play, The Emperor Jones,
yes.
And I couldn't whistle. That's where that was, and I sang. And then somebody arranged a concert of Negro songs.
And there it all started. Now, you actually have therefore not, you're almost self-taught as a singer.
There's no question that
yes.
I would say, well, let's say first that my father had a very beautiful speaking voice. He did not sing, as far as I know. So I was born with a very natural, very fine voice. And I would say of great importance that I stress, as will be clear from any concert I do, the basis of my singing is my speaking voice. For example, I might illustrate. I say, you know, one of my songs, Water Boy, where you hiding? If you don't come, I'm gonna tell your daddy. That's a melody. How did I make the melody? Water boy, where you hiding? If you don't come, I'm gonna tell your daddy. Water boy, where you hiding? If you don't come, I'm gonna tell your daddy. Water boy, where you hiding? If you in exactly the same place, just extended speech. Now, if this is so of my folk songs, it is also true of the music of one of the greatest composers of all time, for my money, of Mussorgsky.
Yes.
And this is from his opera, if you will, Boris Godunov.
Yes.
And the words go, I have attained the highest power. 6 years have I reigned, now no mercy on my tortured soul. Достиг я выше власти, 6 уж год, я царствую спокойно, но счастья нет моей измученной душе. You sing it exactly the same way. Достиг я выше власти, 6 уж год, я царствую спокойно, но счастья нет моей измученной душе. Because Mussorgsky felt that the highest truth was in poetic speech. Folk song has led me to those composers who have built
yes.
completely on folk song.
Yes.
Who are those composers? Mussorgsky,
yes.
Bartók, and Bartók. Bartók, the most complex of modern composers, is built completely on the folk song of his people. Now somebody's got to analyze this. Johann Sebastian Bach. So folk songs can no longer, to my mind, be thought only of as a more simple approach to a classic thing. It is the very essence of the classic composition of a Bartók,
It's
of
the
a Dr.
ferment.
Vaughan Williams. Huh?
It's the ferment, the germ. From which
Not the germ, the very essence of
yes,
it.
very essence of it.
And the classic of Beethoven must be compared to the classic folk of Mussorgsky. Let's take Deep River. I defy, as I said in the New Statesman, find me a melody of Beethoven more noble than Deep River. My home is over Jordan. Deep River, Lord, I want to cross over into Campground. Or my Lord, what a morning. Any number of ours. Find me any melody by its own that's any greater. Now, the fact that it has to be developed somewhere, fine. And this would be so. Just find me a body of folk music, or of any music more beautiful than the Hebridean folk melody. Just find me one. I don't know one. I don't know. Melody after melody. Robert Burns understood this. You understand?
Yes.
It's like his great poetry. And let me say here, what do I mean by folk music at a high level? I mean this. What does Bartók, what do Bartók, Mussorgsky, and Vaughan Williams mean to me? Bartók has an article in which he says what was his business when he went among the Hungarian peasants. It was to make that peasant music language his musical mother tongue, so that anything he composed thereafter would be folk. You understand? Even if it was seemingly in sonata form.
If it was fugal, as in many of his things, somebody's playing tonight on one of his violin things, posthumous. I was talking to Yehudi Menuhin. He wrote a special violin concerto. This is classic. But anything in that has got to be folk, in the sense that anything Robert Burns wrote had to be folk, the folk speech of the lowland Scottish folk. You understand?
Yes.
Was it as great as Keats? I say so.
Yes, I
Well,
would.
would it be? But it was folk. You understand?
Yes.
Well, that's what Bartok means to me, and Debussy, strange to say, and Mussorgsky, and Dr. Vaughan Williams. So this folk music has just as great as any, and Bach belongs there, because every chorale was a folk tune. So that's a very impressive list of composers whose work is based not just by tucking in a folk tune to give it exotic character, but its whole harmony, its whole everything is based on the logic of the folk bass, exactly like Robert Burns. So this is to me the essence of what I mean by great folk music. And as I say in my concerts, I start off with Beethoven's simple melody from the ninth. Everybody, so he took a very simple chorale melody. Da 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 dum da dum 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 da dum da 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 dee da 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 dum dum dum. What could be simpler? But out of this, he built this tremendous architecture of the Ninth Symphony. And what was interesting to me is that after all the instrumental symphonic instruments, he came back to the human voice.
Now, how are we going to combat this point? You see, Maori music has been changed considerably by early European influences, Moody and Sankey, the
So have ours. So has ours.
Yours has too
In America.
In America,
Or certainly in Africa.
Yes.
Most of the African, I hear some people from South Africa or West Africa is just completely Moody and Sankey all over those African rhythms. Sure.
Well, can we get the other sort in any way at all? Can we make sure we get from these older cultures what is important too?
Oh, it's completely possible. It's extremely, in fact, you see, it's a very, often coming to it, I'm not a musician by training, and I sort of stumbled on these things, so I'm very excited about what's happened. When you really take the blues, which is completely African in its rhythms, put on any blues record. For my mind, I'm a very great admirer of jazz myself.
Yes.
To me, one of the greatest pianists in the world is Earl Garner. I'd rather hear him than Rubinstein, incidentally. He's a great pianist. And Mahalia Jackson singing gospel songs.
Yes. Who would you say was the finest blues singer?
Well, I would take
would you put Bessie Smith among the great singers?
Bessie Smith would be the greatest blues singer who ever lived and one of the greatest singers of any kind. And for my money, she's greater than any operatic singer I've ever heard. And the next one, to my mind, would be Mahalia Jackson. If she comes here singing gospel songs, it's very close to Bessie Smith. These are great singers, but I'm only saying this is completely African in its basic thing. Now, what makes it Western? A very simple thing. They use the basic chords of Western harmony. What is the basis of the harmony of Beethoven? 3 chords, that's all. The 1, the 4, and the 5. Do, 4. This is the essence of Western European harmony. What is the kind of song that illustrates it? Oh, du lieber Augustin, 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 oh, du lieber Augustin, dum, bum, bum, bum. Now, in that kind of framework of German song came so-called Western European harmony. And what is Western European harmony? Western European harmony is German harmony. Now, what has happened is that you have put under the blues or under the spirituals the 3 chords that determine German harmony, the 1, the 4, and the 5. And they have nothing to do with this music. Yeah. And Bartok points this out. So what has something to do? You find the harmony within what's happening melodically in this African music. And it's not square, dum, bum, 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 bum. It's very irregular in its rhythmic patterns. So all you've got to do is to take Moody and Sankey out of this music.
Yes. And you've got it again.
That's what you're doing is, so I've got some Maori records, I'm sure they're completely harmonized according to Western harmony, which had nothing to do with this music.
Yes.
Where can you find the music that goes with it? Listen to the music of Java. Listen to the music of the Indonesians. Listen to Bartok. Listen to the harmony of Mussorgsky. Listen to the harmony of Debussy, whose harmony was influenced by the music of Java. That's where you'll find the harmony that should go into this music.
When you sing to an audience, how many of your songs, the songs you like to sing them or the songs you know they like you to sing?
That 9/10 of the songs I sing are songs that I like to sing. I don't go on the basis, strange to say, of singing songs that the audience wants me to hear. they have heard me. I record songs, therefore, most of which I like to record. Now, I did make a lot to do with certain films. Somebody asked me for Lazy Bones last night. Well, that was made during some time of my being a popular singer. How do you explain that? Well, I came to Britain in 28. I was a popular singer in Showboat. Later on, I did concerts, and I became a serious singer. So in America, for example, they wouldn't expect me to sing popular songs. I was a film star in Britain. I was not such a thing in America. So they wouldn't expect me to sing Trees. They would hear. Some of these songs I don't think are great songs, but if I have recorded them, I sing them with respect. But 9/10 of the time, I'm singing songs that I love to sing, or I wouldn't be singing.
Now, can I ask one last question, a personal one? I happen to know that when you arrived in England, was it 58 or 59?
58, yes.
You were celebrating, I think, your 60th birthday.
That's right.
Now, when I look at you now, you look like a man in your prime. Well, you are in your prime, but a prime that most people have to go through much younger. How do you do it?
Well,
How do you look so cheerful?
Yeah, well, I can only say that the last 2 years have been very rewarding. Like I feel in the streets here, everybody says hello and waves because they know me. In Britain, I've really had a magnificent reception. In Scotland and in Wales and Ireland, all over, and I've done concert tours. You know, I played at Stratford, and I feel just that nothing could be finer, you know. And I'm ready to, as I said the other day, they put it wrong in the wrong aspect up in Auckland. I'm sort of feel like I'm starting out all over again as a young singer almost, and I found new ways to sing, and I'm very excited about my music, and it's like I've just discovered something. And I have just never been happier, and I hope you find it here, as they certainly feel in Britain, that never mind the voice, that it may be as rich or richer, but the main thing is that as a human being, I'm richer and give more. So what a wonderful, wonderful thing it is to have a voice, people to listen, and you feel things very deeply, or you find the music of a Mussorgsky that expresses the wealth and the richness of what has come from generations and generations. That's what the folk song means, too.
Well, I'm sure.
You understand? So I feel just so happy and so good, as you say. That makes you look young. Yeah. And I've just taken off 3 stone, so that makes me look
help, isn't it? Well,
it makes me look a little
if
younger.
you're going to give us something, I'm sure we'll be glad to receive.
I
hope
so.
when you leave New Zealand, you'll be not only just as happy, but happier still.
And I hope to come back many times again.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.